I think na statistic we go chop.
I have always been waiting for this from Mr. Peter Obi because he is someone that understands statistics very well. During his last election campaign, Mr. Peter Obi's campaign was based on statistics and facts. Mr. Peter Obi does not reel out figure just because he wants to reel out figure. He will give you out verified statistics and data. And that was what the APC led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu used to criticize his campaign. Then I could remember vividly during one of his campaign, he asked, "Now statistics we go chop. I want to put food on the table of Nigerians." Well, Mr. Peter Obi has finally reminded Bola Ahmed Tinubu of his tantrum thrown at him, asking him if it is statistic we go chop. Now this is what Mr. Peter Obi posted on his official X account. In November 2022, while campaigning in Delta State, the then APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu, now the president, berated the other presidential candidate, Peter Obi. He was ashamed to call his name, saying, "Now statistics we go chop. All I want is to put food on the table of Nigerians." Now, 2 years into his 4-year tenure, Nigeria is classified as one of the hungriest nations in the world, with millions of Nigerians not knowing where their next meal will come from. President Tinubu is now overfeeding Nigerians with wrong statistics, from wrong unemployment figures, wrong inflation figures, and now GDP rebasing, all to put a positive spin on our deteriorating economic and household conditions. Governance is not a rocket science. It's not a gamble, like I've always reiterated. It requires sincerity of purpose, character, competence, capacity, and compassion. This is a direct attack to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and I've been expecting this from Mr. Peter Obi for a very long time, even though other politicians have shied away from saying the truth. The APC-led administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu has left governance and they focus on politics. And one of their main method of politics is propaganda. They've been brandishing figures around, figures that do not reflect on the life of the people. Figures that Nigerians on the street and in the market cannot relate with. Not only are they brandishing these figures, they want to force it on Nigerians to believe. During his campaign, Bola Ahmed Tinubu positioned himself as a leader focused on practical solutions. He dismissed statistical rhetoric in favor of tangible outcomes like food security and economic stability. When Peter Obi was campaigning in 2023 presidential election, he focused on statistics and the raw data to explain to Nigerians the reason why they need to vote for him. To explain to Nigerians the rot the country was experiencing. For instance, Mr. Peter Obi said the oil subsidy is an organized crime. He equally dived into the aspect of oil theft. Mr. Peter Obi dismissed the number of fuel consumption in Nigeria, drawing a comparison between Nigerian population and that of Indonesia. Obi gave her a figure that Nigerian consumption figures are inflated compared to Indonesia, which has a larger population than Nigeria, but consume less fuel than Nigeria. Obi used that statistic to state that the reported fuel importation in the country is a scam and that the people behind the oil subsidy are organized criminals that must stop. Just 2 years after the fuel subsidy was removed and Dangote private refinery, it has shown that the figure that was reported before then were all false. They were just inflated figures that were used to siphon off money from Nigeria. There were many other statistics that Mr. Peter Obi used to drive home his message, like the number of out-of-school children, the vast land in the north that could become Nigeria's hub for agriculture. We know that Bola Ahmed Tinubu don't understand the importance of statistics or even how to use it, but statistics is very important for every government so they can know how to plan and allocate resources. But rather than choose to learn, he resorted to mocking Mr. Peter Obi's statistics, saying na statistics we go chop. He decided to campaign on propaganda and vain words. But however, halfway through his 4 years term, the reality is starkly different. Nigeria ranks among the hungriest nations globally, with over 133 million people living in multi-dimensional poverty. Food inflation has soared past 40%, and the cost of basic necessities like rice, beans, and cooking oil has tripled for many households. Tinubu's promise to prioritize food on the table has been overshadowed by policies that have deepened economic hardship. He doesn't even know how to address these issues because he doesn't even know statistics. He doesn't even know the number of Nigerians that are hungry. Tinubu does not know our poverty and unemployment rate. And I'm sure he doesn't even know how much he has borrowed. That is why he has gone on a borrowing spree. If he doesn't know or understand any of these statistics, how do you expect him to proffer a solution to a problem he has no knowledge about? Because he lacks basic understanding of all of this. That is the reason why he has been trying to manipulate data and statistics in order to appear good in the eyes of Nigerians and the international community. What does an average Nigerian that is hungry, an average Nigerian that cannot afford 1 square meal a day, understand about GDP rebasing? Mr. President, now GDP rebasing we go chop. Does GDP rebasing reduce the price of fuel? Does GDP rebasing reduce the price of commodities in the market? Are you aware a bag of rice is close to 100,000 naira? That garri is no longer the food for the poor but for the rich. The poor cannot even afford basic food like garri anymore. Not to talk of oil. It has gone out of the reach of ordinary Nigerians. And you're talking about GDP rebasing. Now GDP rebasing we go chop. And they have gone about manipulating this data with reckless abandon. One of the most glaring examples of statistical manipulation is the reported drop in Nigerians' unemployment rate. Last year, the National Bureau of Statistics claimed the unemployment rate fell from 33% to 4.3%. This dramatic decline raised eyebrows not because of a sudden job boom, but due to change in methodology. The NBS adopted new International Labour Organization guidelines, redefining employment to include anyone aged 15 and above working for pay or profit, even for a single hour a week. Previously, only those working at least 20 hours a week were considered employed. This shift conveniently slashed the unemployment figure, creating an illusion of progress. But in reality, underemployment and low-quality jobs remain rampant. The NBC itself reported that 93% of Nigerians' labor force is self-employed, often in precarious, informal work that barely sustain livelihood. Youth underemployment is particularly acute, with 12.5% of young Nigerians neither in education, employment nor training. Bola Ahmed Tinubu has not created one single job since he came into office, but he wants us to believe that the unemployment rate fell from 33% to 4% in this Nigeria that all of us are living. In this same Nigeria that majority of our youth are roaming the streets aimlessly with no job or source of livelihood. In this same Nigeria that majority of our brilliant minds are leaving the shore of this country to other developing or even underdeveloped country just because they are looking for greener pastures. They didn't stop at manipulating the unemployment figure. They also manipulated the inflation figure. Inflation is a key driver of Nigerian cost of living crisis. The NBS rebased the consumer price index, adjusting the basket of goods and services used to calculate inflation. By reducing the weight of foods, Nigerians' biggest inflation driver, by 10%, the rebased index reported a lower inflation rate, projected to drop to 15% in 2025, from 34.8% since Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over. Bola Ahmed Tinubu cited this as an example of easing economic pressures. But the reality on ground tells a different story. Food prices has continued to climb, with staple food like bread, yam and rice becoming unavoidable for many. The Naira's devaluation, a policy championed by Tinubu, has eroded purchasing power, with the currency losing over 60% of its value since 2023. A minimum wage increase from 30,000 naira to 70,000 naira secured through labor union protests has been rendered meaningless by inflation, offering little relief to workers. Nigerians are not experiencing the easing inflation Tinubu claims. Instead, they face daily struggles to feed their families. Tinubu did not just stop at manipulating the unemployment and inflation figure. Perhaps the most contentious statistical maneuver is the rebasing of the National Gross Domestic Product, the GDP. In 2024, the NBS rebased GDP to a 2019 base year, boosting the nominal GDP estimate to 372.8 trillion naira. This exercise, which incorporated sectors like fintech, e-commerce, and the informal economy, was heralded by Tinubu aides as proof of economic growth under his Tinubunomics agenda. They reported GDP growth of 3.1% in Q1 of 2025, up from 2.7% in Q1 of 2024, was celebrated as a sign of progress. But as usual, the reality is different. The rebased GDP does not reflect new economic activity but merely recalibrates existing data to inflate figures. Nigeria's economy has slipped from Africa's largest to 4th place behind South Africa, Egypt and Algeria over the past decade. There has been no significant increase in industrial output, agricultural productivity or real income for citizens. The truth is, you can rebase the GDP, the inflation, but you can't rebase hunger. Tinubu's statistical growth means nothing when Nigerians cannot afford food, healthcare or electricity. Tinubu's reliance on manipulated statistics reveals a disconnect between his administration narrative and the reality faced by millions of Nigerians. Governance is not about crafting a favorable image through data tricks. It demands sincerity, competence and compassion. Nigerians expected a leader who will deliver on the promise of food on the table, not one who will obscure their hardship with questionable figures. The unemployment rates, inflation figures, and the GDP rebasing may project an image of progress, but they do nothing to alleviate hunger, poverty, or insecurity. We are not in a campaign mode. Campaign ended in 2023 before the election. We're in actual governance. Tinubu should focus on governance. He should focus on delivering the key dividends of democracy rather than propaganda and politics. Nigerians are tired. They want to eat. They want to feel secured. They want jobs. They want good governance. Just like Mr. P2B said, governance is not a rocket science. It is not a gamble. It is not magic. You don't get result by magic or gamble. You get result by doing the actual work. Bola Tinubu should do the actual work or give way for people that are willing to do the work. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.